Certainly a lot of positives from Miami's 48-33 win over Texas A&M. I know we've already discussed it quite a bit, but again, plenty of positives. But David, I want to ask you this and discuss this, but just your biggest takeaway from the game in terms of moving forward, and maybe something you saw, a really encouraging sign, or just something that you think, because all games are different. There's so much that goes into a game, one week to the next, but maybe it's something that you really believe that you saw, and it's something essentially Miami fans and everybody kind of watching this team can be excited about moving forward.
Yeah, so for me, it's kind of just a big picture idea of Mario Cristobal getting his coordinator hires right. I think, obviously last year was a disaster, and we all know this, even though it was so bad last year on both sides of the ball, I think this is not how I felt, but I think it was a fair argument to make of like, okay, maybe stability is the right play here. Maybe, it's the players, and you got to believe in your culture and your initial hires. So maybe they should stick it out with these coordinators. Again, that's not what I think should have happened last year, but Mario Cristobal went out and brought in two new coordinators. And to me, that's one of the big reasons, beyond, of course, the performance of the players. A lot of players stepped up. But to me, one of the big reasons why they won that game is because I think UM's coordinators and their game plan was better than Texas A&M's. And, when I evaluate a game, going into a game like that, when you evaluate it, I think you always kind of start with the talent. And I don't think like Miami and Texas A&M were vastly different talent for talent. I do give the edge to Texas A&M from a pure talent and depth perspective. And so when that's the case, though, it's up to the coordinators to kind of overcome that with their approach, their game plan, what they're going to do. And I think from Shannon Dawson on offense, I don't think Mario Cristobal gets enough credit for going out and getting out of his comfort zone and hiring a guy with an air raid background. I think in the game, we saw some big time spread principles on Saturday. The run game really wasn't working, and so they depended heavily on the pass with that air raid approach, and it delivered big time results through the air. I also think too it was a telling sign to me, Chris, within the game in that fourth quarter with 2.5 minutes left. It was 3rd and 8. They take kind of a shot play on the sideline to Jacoby George. He makes the catch, makes a guy miss, game over. I think Mario Cristobal has a reputation of handcuffing his coordinators and being ultra conservative. That approach was not conservative. So that's going to be something to monitor moving forward. Is that a real narrative, or is this a new way of doing things for Mario Cristobal? And defensively, Lance Guidry took the fight to Texas A&M with an aggressive approach. Miami had 0 sacks in the game, but they affected the quarterback with 30 pressures. And 33 points, no doubt, is kind of a lot. But it's important to remember, I think, that 14 of those points came off special teams gaffes with short fields. And so, look, I don't think Miami's defense, the talent is quite where it needs to be, but they're playing an aggressive style. Lance Guidry is trusting them to play that style because he thinks that's when they're at their best, because they're engaged with that type of play. I think too, and I'll wrap this up here, but you combine these systems with the discipline and toughness and grit of Mario Cristobal. I think that's a marriage that can really work. I think it's an attractive situation to recruits. I think it's a fun product for fans to watch, and that's important nowadays because of NIL, and fans will give to the NIL when they believe in what they're watching. And again, Bobby Petrino, DJ Durkin are proven commodities at that coordinator level, and I think Miami's guys kind of whipped them on the day.
David, we talked so much about just what we expected or what we believed and these kind of things, but actual seeing results, you have to kind of go with the results and learning more about this team. And I think to your point, I think one of the things that's going to be interesting, I think Lance Guidry in particular is learning more about his defense and his guys. And I think he's going to put them in. He can think one thing, and again, he sees it in practice all the time. And I remember asking him if he has a good feel. I think this is a media day, asking if he has a good feel of his team. And he said, yeah, he feels like he does. But now seeing it in games, and and really kind of knowing how guys perform. And he has talked in the offseason about kind of learning how a team, if they want to be more aggressive or if they should play back more, and just kind of getting a good feel. And I think that's what's been great so far with the defense and moving forward, to your point about moving forward. And certainly that pass play to George, if you're going to pass, certainly they could have did a run right there. If you're going to pass, maybe you go over the middle, something like that, where you just kind of keep it in front and a little bit more conservative, even if you throw it. But they throw to the outside, as you mentioned. That was a good point. And certainly, I think everybody was encouraged or hopeful of what you've seen from Dawson's offense in the past. And then moving forward with Van Dyke and the fit, we talked about that quite a bit. So that's a good sign. David, for me, the biggest takeaway from the game, I think moving forward, is the fact that they were down 10-0, down 17-7. It did not look good. Kind of, whether it was special teams, the defense in the red zone, the offense not getting it going quite yet. And they overcame it. Football's a long game. And I think for Miami to get the result, get in control of the game, get into a good rhythm, I think that, to me, is something you could take moving forward. It's a test that they passed. We touch on adversity. I remember you asked Coach Cristobal about, do you know if this team, can you get a sense of, essentially, this team has a sense of adversity going into a year? And, in his response, which is true, we'll see, and we did see. And, so I think that's big. And I think I want to play this clip from Tyler Van Dyke after the game about what he said about his thoughts about this, facing the adversity.
I think last year, we would have quit, honestly. We're a totally different team. The leaders stepped up, players stepped up, held each other accountable the entire offseason, told each other, we can't give up in big games like this. We just fought the entire time.
So certainly, clearly interesting comments and response from Van Dyke, saying last year's team would have quit. And again, you can say certain things going into a game and thoughts and belief that this team's going to do it, but they did it. And I think, again, teams are not always going to play at their best. So if they're down early, it's not, essentially, it shouldn't be over for the Hurricanes. They'll battle back because they did against A&M. And I'm sure they can say that on the sideline moving forward. If they get down again, if they happen to not have a good start, which can happen in games. So I think that's big. I think regardless, if they're down, they know they've done it. And they didn't squeak this one out. They got complete control. The score, they were complete control. And they were certainly did get a little closer in the fourth quarter. But Miami did a good job of that. They made big plays when they needed it, whether it was in the passing game, but certainly that Brashard Smith kick return first score was huge too. So they made big plays. Defense, they came up with some turnovers. So I think that the adverse, to me, and I hear what you're saying with the coordinators, to me, just that down early didn't look good, didn't feel good. I know the fans are probably on edge, listening to the crowd at the time. Certainly they wanted to rally behind the team, and Miami gave them something to cheer about. And that's certainly a positive.
No doubt. And that responding to adversity is what I remember Miami Hurricanes football being when they were good, right? When they were running the sport. And, the talent is the talent, right? That's got to be improved over time. But what can be controlled is your fight, your competitive response to tough situations. And that's where Miami looks like from that game, they've taken a big step forward year over year. And honestly, Chris, I would make the argument that in some ways is tied into the coordinators and their impact, because I do think there's something to be said for, I think these players believe in the coordinators and the positions they're being put in, their approach, their game plans. I think that's a big deal in college football. And I think it is showing in that way as well.
The players certainly gushed about both coordinators throughout the spring, offseason stuff. They certainly spoke very highly of both of these guys. There was another thing in the press conference that stood out to me, and because I've believed in this, and I know you touched on the coaching changes and everything that went on last year. And, for me, and I've heard this before in sports, players have to look at themselves of, this is our team. Coaches, I look at sometimes, they're going to coach. This is their career. They're going to be here. They'll be at another school. They were at another school before. This is about the players in this moment, this season, and kind of their time here. And I believe it is. What kind of team do you want to have? This is your team. And I know that can be tough, particularly with college football and the coaching and instruction and everything that goes on there. And I thought Restrepo did a good job kind of expressing that, essentially, and other players have too, about, getting past last year, not acceptable and that kind of a thing. But, essentially putting their foot down, essentially, no, that's not what we want to be. And I know Cam was another one of those guys that, with his speech last year, and that was big, I think, essentially who wants to be here. And there was a lot of turnover, not just with the coaches, but players too. And this year's group with what they want to do. And I thought James Williams too, look, he said, and I know this is how Miami fans think. He said, simply put, if we don't shoot ourselves in the foot, we should win every game. And I think a lot of Miami fans do look at that. I think that we've thought about this over the years with not the overwhelming opponent in the ACC year in and year out. And Miami's underdelivered, underperformed. And certainly you're hoping things change. Maybe it's this year with this group. And certainly it's off to a great start. And we'll see how things go moving forward.
Yeah, got to stay on edge the whole season. We talk about navigating a season. That's a big deal. The players have to put it on themselves. I think comparing Texas A&M game to Texas A&M game, last year's game, there was a lot of, just from what I saw, there was a lot of moments where I felt like the guys were like, are you going to make the play? Are you going to make the play? Are you going to make the play? Whereas on Saturday, in this recent Texas A&M game, you had a lot of players saying, I'm going to be the guy who goes and makes the play and change the game. So that's a big deal. That's a huge difference year over year. And that's just another sign of Mario Cristobal's culture starting to take hold. Obviously, a long way to go still in this season and the results to play out. But it was definitely encouraging in that regard.
And certainly college football, look, it's not perfect. You're not winning 80-0. Yeah. There's things to work on, but there's absolutely more things to be positive about with where this team is. And people should be excited about this team, and we'll see how things go moving forward. Expected, obviously, to win the next couple of games, and then we'll see, even that Georgia Tech game. So a lot to be excited about with Miami football so far. Results are pouring in right now, and so far a great start, and we'll see how everything goes moving forward. Thanks for watching the videos. Be sure to stay tuned and stay locked into InsideTheU.com for plenty of information, daily inside information, certainly with recruiting and everything with the team. So stay locked in. Thanks for watching. Take care, guys.